I saw this coming a mile away. So, what happened to the skill paper? You know, the one they said was coming out in June 2024. Now, I know. It explicitly states that the timing is subject to change, but it's almost sad how predictable it was that they were going to miss the projected date. As I said, I saw this coming a mile away. I'm not surprised in the least that there is no skill paper as of the first week of July. But the reason for its absence is one we don't really have to discuss because it's obvious. Talking about the role skill plays in Call of Duty's matchmaking is a dangerous game, especially when it's clearly extremely shady and manipulative in the way that it works. There's no way to rationally explain their usage of skill without sounding really suspicious or inhumane, or gaslighting us to a new extreme, and sounding somehow like it isn't a humongous problem. But judging by the last 8 videos I've made about Activision's matchmaking talks and the comments on them, a lot of people reading the papers can see right through their nonsense. Another obvious reason that this skill paper is so late is because they are concocting it perfectly to fit exactly what narrative they're trying to spread, also while technically telling no lies. As we've discussed earlier, they can't publicly lie about their matchmaking, as that is illegal, so they have to phrase it using legal speak and lawyers present so that it's still technically true, but we're gaslit into believing that their matchmaking is somehow much less manipulative than it actually truly is. In fact, they're constructing and writing this part of the paper so carefully that they had 3 months to write the skill paper after the ping paper, which was released on April 4th, and they're still not done. And the fact they're not done suggests one of 2 things. First, they're trying so carefully to write this paper properly because the matchmaking isn't changing, but they have to make it sound like it's not half as bad as it is, or, something I still suspect, the skill measurement in COD's matchmaking is changing and they're going to drop the paper after they can detail all of the changes. There's a couple huge main reasons why adjusting the skill in their eomm algorithm actually makes more sense than you'd initially think. Think about it this way. If they talk about how it fits in, they're going to say some really condemning things about their matchmaking. Clearly, the skill measurement in matchmaking is way too strong, matches are way too competitive, and the game is stressful and annoying to play all the time. Clearly, their system doesn't work at engaging better players, and it's clearly geared towards catering to worse players so that they don't quit after getting beaten by players better than them. It's also created with engagement in mind, hence it being called engagement optimized matchmaking, to keep everyone at very close to a 1 kill death ratio and a 1 win loss ratio, so that no one experiences the game any differently than someone else. And to better players with upwards of a 2 or 3 KD from past games, this system is extremely aggravating because you're essentially twice or 3 times as bad as you were before because the algorithm is forcing you to play rigged games where you have a 1 KD forced on you whether you like it or not. And the worst players are put in lobbies that are bad enough that despite their lack of skill, they can still break even. And because it punishes good players by reducing their KD and rewards bad players by boosting their KD, it'll obviously piss off the sweats and make the bad players defend the game. It's literally communism in a video game, and it's working. What? Explaining this communist system in this paper, no matter how you slice it, is a surefire way to raise suspicion among your fanbase, if there isn't enough cause for suspicion already. Explaining the terrible system they have now is a horrible idea, and because they committed to explaining their skill within their matchmaking, and backing out would look really bad, they have to put together and publish the paper, which means, in theory, that in order to avoid exposing what they're actually doing, they're going to change how the matchmaking works. But another huge reason is because of the release of Black Ops 6. Despite the huge amount of pre-orders for whatever reason, after the disaster that was Modern Warfare 3, certain people in a certain part of the community aren't going to buy Black Ops 6 because they believe the matchmaking will be just as bad as it was in the past 5 games. And in order to build more hype and remedy this problem, they could announce changes to the matchmaking and then publish the paper based on the new changes, not the old terrible system that, once explained in writing, would undoubtedly single it out as the most manipulative matchmaking experience in gaming history. Black Ops 6 is being advertised as their finest work, and it has the longest development cycle in Call of Duty history. They're bringing back classic elements like the old Prestige system, as well as bringing back 16 maps on launch. However, a lot of us aren't buying it anymore regardless. Even with the new movement systems and new gunplay and new this and new that, we don't care. The only way to convince me and the people who agree with me in the anti-eomm community is to adjust the matchmaking. And there is no better time to do that than now, because they committed to talking about the skill measurement in matchmaking, and they cannot back out of it, as I made sense of earlier. The upcoming skill paper is the only way to make a reasonable announcement to the people that follow creators that critique COD's eomm. No casuals are reading their matchmaking talks. However, if they're smart, they'll try to cater to every audience, which means they'll even try to reach people who absolutely hate COD's matchmaking. This seems to be their one opportunity to announce changes to the matchmaking, right about when they're forced to soon release their deep dive into how skill works in COD's matchmaking. It's a pretty deadly trifecta. The delay, the new game, and the way it works now are three pretty decent pieces of evidence that suggest that Activision seems to have a pretty good chance of changing their matchmaking for the better. The delay in the paper from its projected date looks bad already, and it suggests that they're very carefully putting this paper together. The hype surrounding Black Ops 6 and the big changes it's already made to become more similar to legacy titles like 16 maps on launch and Classic Prestige, as well as these new movement options, can also be dramatized even more by announcing a change to their matchmaking. And finally, the way the matchmaking works now is impossible to explain without it sounding really bad, and putting a target on their back for critics to slam how the system works and truly expose it for what it is: eomm. And if I can slam them from the original blog post and the ping white paper, then how the skill works is going to be the easiest, freest bonus slam I've ever had. But these three components heavily suggest that change is coming, and if it doesn't, it'll be hilarious, because they will be forced to explain the current system, which is going to be an absolutely hilarious read. They committed to it, but until then, we gotta wait and see. I personally cannot wait to read it. I've been waiting for months, and I'll be right on top of it when it drops. But that's all I got for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm Prime Pete. Take it easy.